Tonight, Ghana Armed Forces fights off allegations its troops have been terrorizing residents of Boko, with one soldier still in critical condition. Parliament has issued an urgent summons to the National Security, Defense and Interior Ministers for an emergency briefing on Parliament in the situation that is still boiling in Boko.
These soldiers or army officers who are put there to provide security themselves, in some cases by some conduct, have become even a threat to the security situation. They go into homes, they search homes, and when they find even a cutlass.
Plus, the motion by the minority for a bipartisan probe into circumstances leading to the killing of two policemen allegedly involved in bullion van robberies.
Parliament can deal with this, and the way to go is to file a private member's motion to probe, publicly inquire into the circumstances surrounding the killing.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone and Prime Insurance. The Ghana Armed Forces is tonight fighting off allegations its troops have been terrorizing residents of Boko in the Upper East region, leading to a bloody attack that left one soldier in critical condition. With the violence escalating, Parliament has also tonight issued an urgent summons to the National Security, Defense and Interior Ministers for an emergency briefing of the House. More from Parliament shortly, but first, the Ghana Armed Forces has a statement out in the last hour. My colleague Kojo Brace joins me with details of this. Kojo, we are learning a bit more about the circumstances that led to the shooting of three soldiers. What is the account of the Ghana Armed Forces?
Well, what the Ghana Armed Forces are saying is that the Ghana Armed Forces personnel conducted a series of cording off operations in Boko in the wake of recent shootings and sporadic shootings in the past days. Now, according to them, this led to the exchange of fire between personnel of the 11 Mechanized Battalion and some armed assailant at Sabongari, I hope I've gotten the name right, which is a suburb of Boko, on Wednesday, 16th March 2022. Now, according to the Ghana Armed Forces, in the process, one assailant died and 5 persons, including 3 soldiers, were injured. And they say that 10 people were arrested and handed over to the Boko District Police for further investigations. They further go ahead to add that in the early hours of Wednesday, 16th March, troops deployed to Sabongari heard gunshot from an uncompleted building. Now, they headed to the location to cording off that place. That was when some armed assailants started shooting towards the military as well. And this also resulted in an exchange of fire between the troops and these assailants. Now, we must add that they say that subsequent to that, personnel of the 11 Mechanized Battalion, with the support of the police, stepped up to their control and cordon of operations at Boabula and Pusiga to fish out the suspect who had engaged in that kind of shooting with the police. So that's what the armed forces are putting across.
Okay, but the allegations has been, and we'll hear from Parliament very shortly, that some civilians may have been caught up in the crossfire. It appears that the military is admitting, yes, some innocent bystanders may have been caught in this crossfire, but also some suspects as well.
Yeah, according to the police, they say that one injured suspect was part of those armed assailants who were shooting at the military, was rushed to a hospital called the Vineyard Hospital. And like you said earlier, they admitted that yes, one woman was caught by one of the bullets, and she was also rushed to the same Vineyard Hospital. We must place on record that according to the Ghana Armed Forces, two of the three soldiers who sustained injuries had to be airlifted to the 37 military hospital, where they are receiving treatment as we speak.
Did they give us an update on the situation on the ground?
Yeah, they say that they have been able to put the situation under control as we speak.
Okay. And as we've just been indicating there at the Brace, there's been accusations that the soldiers have been terrorizing residents. Today, it came up on the floor of Parliament. Hassan Suhini, MP for Tamale North, asked the House to take action.
Just a while ago, I was on one of the TV stations, on Metro TV, and this matter came up for discussion. And, Mr. Speaker, my phones have not stopped ringing since after the discussion. And I am getting calls from people who represent the different views that have led to the conflict in the area. And it gives me the indication that it is such a serious matter that we should not joke with it as a country. And which better organization than the Parliament of Ghana should in finding a solution, even if it is a temporary one, as we speak. Mr. Speaker, for example, the issue involving the shooting of the soldiers. My fear was that it could even have a relationship with what is happening in Burkina Faso and people coming in and rebels and all of that. But the indication I got after the show is that, in fact, the citizens themselves are complaining that sometimes these soldiers or army officers who are put there to provide security themselves, in some cases by some conduct, have become even a threat to the security situation. They go into homes, they search homes, and when they find even a cutlass, they begin to harass, residents of the place. They make them pay some monies in some cases before they are allowed, to go. And it tells you that it's a cocktail. Yes, it's a cocktail of issues that we have to be briefed adequately with, and we all can see how we can contribute to bringing down tension in that area.
Kojo, the Ghana Armed Forces have in this statement they issued today dismissed these allegations that they've somehow been terrorizing residents.
The Ghana Armed Forces say that this kind of operations they are doing has been planned in accordance with the rules of engagement, and they are doing this in order to rid the municipality of armed assailant. And they want, in their own words, they say that the allegations on social media that they are engaging in things that they are not supposed to can only be described as false and diversionary and must accordingly be ignored. So according to them, they are not doing things out of order, and they are not doing things as people put on social media. And we must, as Ghanaians, disregard all of those allegations on social media.
Thank you very much, Kojo. But in Parliament today, the Minority Chief Whip, Muntaka Mubarak, beyond what we heard from his colleague, Hassan Suhini, was very direct that at the very least, the Defense and Interior Ministers should all be summoned before Parliament, even if it's behind closed doors, to brief the House on what he believes to be a very urgent situation that it's further escalating.
As regards the policies are that pictures coming and news items going around is a bit worrying and very disturbing. And as a House, in fact, even our colleagues from the enclave are scared to be heard talking about it because of the delicate nature of what is happening there. And some brutalities that is being said to be happening as of this morning in that enclave. I thought that, Mr. Speaker, as a House, we should be interested to get the Ministers of Interior, Defense, and National Security, even if it is a closed sitting, where they can brief this House, for us to know exactly what are some of the things that are happening and what steps is being taken to help manage the difficulties. I know the conflict is a very long, outstanding issues, but the current happening is not very healthy for us. And I want to crave your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, that if we can get these ministers to come and brief the House, so that at least the House is versed with what
Joy 99.7.
personnel that are there, the officers that have been sent there, belonging to some of the factional groups And Mr. Speaker, if this turns out to be true, for example, you want to send troops to Aswansi, and you have the like, or some, may God forbid, something is happening in Kumasi, and then you and I are also put as part of the contingent to go there. We indirectly have interest because that's where we hail, that's where we come from, we know everything there. So when these all allegations are going on, I think it is important that we get the ministers of security to brief us so that at least what our colleagues from that enclave also know can be relayed to the ministers for them to see what actions they can take to help save the further escalation of the violent mayhem that is going on. I thought that I needed to draw the attention of the House Commission.
Well, the majority side did not disagree with the call for the ministers to be summoned before the House. Listen to the majority Chief Whip Anodompre.
I think I share in the worries of colleagues and also not to overflog the matter. It's an important concern that all of us have to discuss and find a lasting solution. But it will be remiss on my
Super
part.
Hits Radio, Joy 99.7.
The Minister for Interior, based on what I know, had it not been some good intervention, probably the situation would have gotten out of hand. So to that extent, I want to commend the Minister. Be it as it may, what it means is that there is still a concern, and we cannot leave this matter to die naturally. So I'm totally in support, except to say that this is, as we know, we've dealt with such matters before in this House, where based on Speaker's directive, some committees or selected group of us have been charged to work in this direction. So we should
Super Hits Radio, Joy.
I direct.
And let's stay with the matters of security. And you may have noticed in the last week or so, the police issued a statement that raised a few eyebrows about the circumstances that led to the shooting and killing of two police officers accused of being involved in the bullion van robberies recently. Well, the minority in Parliament have tonight filed a motion calling for a bipartisan probe into the killing of these two policemen allegedly involved in bullion van robberies in the country. In a private member's motion signed by ranking member of the Defense and Interior Committee, James Agaga, and Medina MP Francis Xavier Susu, he stated that considering the high rate of police involvement in the bullion van attacks and related killings, which they say have become highly suspicious, they simply want this to be properly interrogated by this bipartisan committee. Maxwell Abagba joins me in the studio with details of this particular motion that has now been filed. Maxwell.
Motion, it gives a background and lists quite a number of bullion van robberies that we've had in the recent past. It talks about an incident that happened at Adansi Fomna where 500,000 Ghana cedis was stolen, driver was killed, AK-47 assault rifle also stolen. It talks about quite a number of these bullion van attacks, and then it moves on to say that considering the high rate of police involvement in these bullion van attacks and related murders, it has become very highly suspicious, and it's important to interrogate some of these matters. It makes reference to the incident that happened at Boteman where two police officers were killed when they were taken to the hideout of some of the suspected criminals. And it says that, as contained in Section 1A of the Prison Service Act, it shall be the duty of the prison service to ensure the safe custody and welfare of prisoners, and whenever practicable, to undertake the reformation and rehabilitation of prisoners. It goes on to talk about how it was important for the police to provide protection for the two men who they had taken to the hideout of the criminals. Two things they want with this private member's motion. They say, one, ascertain the circumstances leading to the murder of the two police officers, and then two, recommend appropriate actions where necessary to restore public confidence in the Ghana Police Service. Evans.
So there's a certain doubt there they are casting on the circumstances surrounding which these two police officers were killed, and they want this probe by a bipartisan committee in Parliament. The police themselves, of course, we know when this happened, explained to us how the two police officers were killed. Listen to Director of Police Public Affairs, DCOP Kwesi Fori.
They opened fire on the police, and the police also retaliated, and that is why we said we believe some of them might have sustained injuries and are appealing to medical authorities to provide us with needed information should they come for treatment.
Okay. When you say they opened fire on the police, who opened fire on the police?
Oh, we are talking about the criminals. We are saying
great. So those criminals
cannot open fire on Israel.
Good.
We're saying that there was an intelligence-led operations, a field operations, that the two sustained injuries.
Finally, I just want this to be very clear. These people, were they part of the police team that went to Borteman, or they were in Borteman, part of the criminals?
We indicated that they were under arrest, and in the course of the special exercise at Borteman, they suffered injuries, sent to police hospital, and they passed on.
So you took them to Borteman?
But we were in the company of the police.
Were you not wearing any protectives, these persons who went to, as part of the intelligence exercise?
Let me say that it depends. Even if you are in a protective gear, it depends upon where the bullet hits.
I want to bring in the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee. He filed this particular motion for this bipartisan committee to probe this matter. Mr. Agaga, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Evans, thanks for having me.
I mean, why a bipartisan probe and not the police's own internal? Why you're not triggering the police's own internal investigative mechanisms?
Evans, there have been attempts to have in place an independent police complaints commission, but those attempts have not materialized. And so whenever there are allegations of killings with the police implicated, it is out of place to allow the police to investigate themselves. And we saw an example of how reports or investigative reports can be cooked when the police are allowed to investigate themselves. A case in hand is the Asawasi shooting incident, which resulted in the deaths of seven people. Now, in the aftermath of the killings in Asawasi, the police purported to investigate the matter, and the results of the investigation cleared the police of any wrongdoing. But when there was some public outcry, and the authorities in the Ashanti region paid heed to the outcry and set up an independent probe, the results were sharply in contrast with what the police themselves churned out in their investigative report. It turned out that the 7 individuals who were branded as armed robbers were not armed robbers after all. Eventually, the state had to pay compensation, hefty compensation, for the murders of the 7. That is a typical example of how it is unfortunate and regrettable to ask the police to investigate themselves whenever there are allegations of wrongdoing. In respect of the shooting or the killing of the 2 police officers who were in the custody of the police themselves, Evans, the response of the police leaves much to be desired. People are asking questions. How come it was the police officers, the 2, who were themselves implicated in the bullion van robberies, who got killed in the course of the execution of the so-called, intelligence-led operation. So people are asking questions. And even if you consider the fact that these are the officers who would have otherwise served as key witnesses or give crucial evidence to unravel the mystery surrounding the bullion van attacks. And all of a sudden, we're told that they died in the course of the exchange of fire between the police and the criminals they too had led the police to arrest. Definitely, you have some suspicion and doubt.
Yeah, but
that is why we think that it is time we had an independent probe to be carried out by a bipartisan committee with membership drawn from the Interior and Defense Committee and the Committee for Parliamentary, Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
But that begs the question, to what end, though? What's the end game here? So the politicians from both sides sit and look into this very sensitive security matter, and then what after that?
Evans, we want to restore public confidence in the police service. And this is very important because the police are supposed to be protecting you and I. Now, if it turns out that most of the crimes committed, you have the police heavily implicated, there would be some loss of public confidence in the police. We think that such a probe would help restore public confidence in the police. And that is very important if we're to succeed in the fight against crime.
So is this going to be a fact-finding committee, or what exactly? What nature would this committee take?
We would want to unravel the circumstances surrounding the deaths of the two officers and to proffer some suggestions or recommendations which should result in the restoration of public confidence in the police. Again, we would be looking at the issue of the infiltration of the security services by rogue elements. You find that, some time ago, I had issues with the mode of recruitment into the security services. And it appears the chicken have come home to roost. Police officers who were recently, because look at the ranks of the persons involved, even the four who have been put before the courts. Most of them are lance corporals or constables. What that means is that they were newly recruited. So we need to examine critically how some of those rogue elements managed to infiltrate the security services and what the way forward should be.
Thankfully, let me bring in analyst Adam Bonner, Chief Executive of the Security Warehouse Limited, and joins us on the telephone line. Mr. Bonner, so a bipartisan parliamentary committee, is that the best option for this matter?
Yes, good evening, Evans, and good evening to my brother Agaga. Yes, I think a bipartisan probe into these matters is welcomed, and to the extent that will probably restore some, confidence in the Ghana Police Service is crucial. And so as far as I'm concerned, a bipartisan probe is something that I will, welcome. In any case, once there is some, loss of lives, usually the police themselves would have to institute, various forms of investigations. But I want to believe that Honorable Agaga would have to correct me if I'm wrong. This probably would be the first of its kind where we have a bipartisan probe involving such a matter. And so whatever findings they are able to bring out and recommendations would go a long way to help, the police service itself. Like you did mention, some of us previously have advocated to have an independent police complaint authority or commission. But the outcome of the Iowa West Wagon Commission report, they made that recommendation and it was captured, properly. But unfortunately, the white paper from the presidency didn't take it. And so I hope that this would be another fine opportunity for Parliament. The bipartisan committee or members who are going to be drawn from both sides to probably reiterate and say, can we have this, in a way, can we have a recommendation like that? I'm not trying to, jump ahead of what they are going to do, but I would want to see such a thing. Because obviously, if you look at the circumstances surrounding the death of the two police officers, because I work closely with the police, I will tell you that usually it is a standard operating procedure. Usually, suspects are, arrested, and they have to take them to a location where probably some evidence, because the criminal prosecutions, you need evidence. You cannot take them to court. You cannot prosecute them if you don't have evidence. But usually, in taking these suspects to the location where they probably have alleged the police would find evidence, they go there, and some of their colleague criminals, suspected criminals, are there, laying ambush to, probably hurt police officers or kill them. And such a thing happened, I think, last year in the eastern region where a DSP was shot at. I think he was seriously wounded. And so these things do happen. And so as far as I'm concerned, yes, if you go on social media, you go out there, the public is raising a lot of questions. So the bipartisan approach, Evans, is something that would bring some form of finality to whether the police were wrong or they were right.
And let me quickly bring in Mr. Gaga into Mr. Gaga very quickly. So this has been filed now with yourself and your colleague from Medina. Has the speaker admitted it yet?
The motion was filed this morning, and so we expect that the speaker would deal with it expeditiously, and we take it up from there. This is a matter of public importance, and so it is our expectation that the speaker would treat it as such.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaga. He is a ranking on the Defense and Interior Committee. Thank you, Adam Bona, who is the Chief Executive of the Security Warehouse Limited. In a related development, the Special Prosecutor is taking a keen interest in the recruitment of cadet officers training at the Ghana Police Academy. Now, Kisie Jabin has commenced investigations, we understand, into this. Maxwell is still with me. Maxwell, what do we know about this?
In a statement released by the special prosecutor, he says he has started full investigations into suspected corruption and corruption-related offences in respect of the recruitment exercise of Course 51 of Cadet Officers Training at the Ghana Police Academy. The investigations target specific cases of alleged corruption and corruption-related offences of the use of office for profit, abuse of office, abuse of power, favoritism, nepotism, victimization, and the selection of unqualified persons. Evans.
Thank you, Maxwell. As the special prosecutor takes an interest in how police recruitment is done. I want to hear from you. 05511 11997 Newsnight starts in a minute.